Hello, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as the Glazers receive a warning from Qatar. Not just Qatar, to be fair, also probably Sir Jim and a few other bidders for Manchester United. It's all or nothing, Glazers. It's all or nothing. We'll discuss what that means, and I think it's a positive thing, if I'm completely honest. We'll also be talking about, looking at the live chat, there's a bit of a debate going on about Harry Maguire in there. I just want to throw a little curveball in there and say that I think Lindelof leaves in the summer. I saw him coming off at half-time, just after half-time yesterday. And look, I don't think for 1 minute he's causing an issue, but you could see he was disappointed to go off. And if you're Victor Lindelof and you're fourth choice centre-back at Man United, I mean, do you really want to hang around for another year? The press focus all the time on Maguire, which I think is wrong. I'd rather Lindelof stay, but I think he'll go, which means maybe Maguire will stay. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I also want to talk about why Man United need to break the bank for a midfielder that's going to make a massive difference to our season last year, and Casemiro is the prototype for that, and we need to go and get this guy. We'll talk about that as well. Also want to talk about what Ten Hag, the genius of Ten Hag. We saw what Steve McLaren was saying after the game. We saw that, we've heard what Ten Hag had to say about Garnacho, and he wants him to start delivering in 90 minutes when he starts him in a game, and he certainly did that. We'll talk about that as well. I want to get into this latest story about what's going on with the sale of Manchester United, because I think it's a significant update on where we are at the moment. However, I just want to say as well, you might like this while you're eating your porridge. There's a lot of talk about Ten Hag's genius in his first season. We remember where we were last season. We didn't even hit 60 points. It was a horrific Premier League season. The worst ever Premier League season Man United ever had in relation to points tally. It was a disgrace. This is Ten Hag's first season. We have only gone over 70 points twice in the last 10 years. 81 points with Mourinho when he finished second. And I think Ollie got 74 points when he finished second. So we've only done it twice in the last 10 years, gone over 70 points. That was Mourinho's second season, and it was Ollie's second season. And I think it was Ollie's season when there was no fans in the ground as well. So, I wouldn't go running away with that stat. Ten Hag's going to go north of 71 points. Easy. This season, in his first season. You can talk about Carabao Cups, you can talk about FA Cups, you can talk about Europa Leagues, you can talk about third or second place. You can talk about that if you like. But I said it at the start of the season, and I've said it in our previous seasons. Actually, points tally is absolutely essential. And that's Ollie had 86 points as Hasco. Did he? I don't think he did, mate. But look, we've currently got 49 points, and I think we've got 14 games to go. If we keep doing what we're doing, we'll go. We could get 80 points, but what I'm saying is, I think to go over 70 points in your first season in charge will be, and we're not there yet, but that will be. It's not a trophy, but it's still remarkable, and the league form with all the challenges we've had has been brilliant. Of course it has. Look, we'll maybe come back to that in a minute, but let's talk about the headline. It's all or nothing when it comes to the sale of Manchester United. What does that mean? Well, effectively, Qatar, Sir Jim, although there's a little bit of question mark over that, but Qatar have nailed their flag to the mast on this. It's all or nothing. There's no negotiation with the Glazers about minority investment or anything like that. They want the club, or they don't get the club. And that's laid out quite crystal clear to the Glazers that although there is talk of the Glazers looking for minority investment and there's talk of hedge funds funding the Glazers to stay, which we'll talk about in a moment, the reality is when it comes to it, 86 points is stuck in my head now. Ollie didn't get 86 points. When it comes to the sale of Manchester United and it comes to Qatar specifically, they will not fund the Glazers. They will not fund them. They will not prop them up and allow them to stay at the club. They want control. They want Manchester United. And to be honest, I would imagine most people who are bidding do want that. But how is that significant to where we are at this moment in time? There is this story, it's been developing all week, that the bids that have gone in, and they are only first round bids anyway, so I don't really get the drama around the fact that the Glazers aren't happy with the first round of bids, because if you know there's going to be a second and third round of bids, one, you don't accept the first bid if you're the Glazers, and two, you don't put your highest bid in if you're Qatar or Sir Jim anyway. So first round of bids being rejected doesn't really surprise me at all. Obviously, the Glazers aren't happy with the first round of bids. We believe they're around sort of £4 billion, and the next round of bids will come in. I believe that we are seeing typical tactics of selling anything, whether you're selling a bar of soap or a car or a house or Manchester United. You reject the first round of bids and you start talking about other options. There's other options out there. There's other options out there. You know, it's like asking your dream girl to marry you, and they're like looking at you thinking, oh, I don't know about that. And you go, well, if you don't want to do it, I've got Margot Robbie on speed dial, and I've got some other actress waiting around the corner. Are you going to make a decision? I mean, it's a load of nonsense, but I think that's just normal posturing that you get in a sale. So I think the Glazers are, you know, trying to force that price up, and Qatar and everyone else will know their price has got to go up. There is a bidding war, essentially, even if it's not going as high as they want. So I think this is all normal behaviour. But I think it's encouraging that the more people just say, no, I want the club or nothing, the more the Glazers have to sell. We need to snap up both Weghorst and Sabitzer, agree a deal before the end of the season. I completely disagree with you, Akshay. Completely disagree with you on that one. Please remind me to come back to that. I completely disagree with that. I don't know where you're getting that from. I think that's small-minded, low ambition tactics. Offer Weghorst and Sabitzer long-term contracts now? No, that's not how big clubs work. No, not for me. We'll come back to that, though. You make a good point. Anyway, so where are we with this sale? There is still talk of the Glazers getting investment in. I read a very good tweet from Phil Brown just because I was going live, actually, and I completely agree with this, and we've been saying this before quite a few times on here as a community. For the Glazers to stay, they'd have a bit of a problem anyway, the Glazers, because they only own 69% of the club. They don't own 100% of the club. They own 69% of it, and there's different types of shares and voting shares and everything. But if they only own 69% of the club, they can't really sell a massive amount of the club because they'll go below 50%. And anything they get into the club has to be spent on the club. Like the stadium is always, there's many layers to this, but the stadium is always the best place to start. They've got to build or rebuild the stadium, and that is going to cost anywhere between £1 and £2 billion. They don't have the money for that. How do you raise that money? You either sell the club and leave it to somebody else to do and cash out, or you get someone else to lend you the money that you don't have to then spend it on the stadium. Now, do the Glazers strike you as the sort of people that when they've got the option between walking away with 4 or 5 billion in their pocket, or option 2, take on more debt to spend it on a stadium and not make any money themselves, and then still have the problem of Manchester United? I can't see them not taking option 1, because option 2, let's pretend Elliott Investment Fund or Steve's Investment Fund or, you know, Alan Sugar's Investment Fund or Clarkson's Farms Investment Fund. You know, I don't know, and I don't really care. Somebody invests in the Glazers to allow them to stay. Well, the Glazers have to retain ownership, so they can't give up too much of their ownership anyway, because they don't have a massive amount. And that money that comes in would have to be paid back at some point, so it eats into their profits. And also that money then has to be spent on infrastructure, stadia and transfers. So where it limits what the Glazers can do. They're not going to be able to take the dividends out they did before. They're not going to be able to take a big chunk out of the investment because there'll be terms on that investment having to go into the club. And, you know, the more you think about it, the more it becomes clear that this is just manoeuvring tactics from the Glazers to, you know, try and get a better price. Or ultimately, maybe they're even in denial. Maybe they're thinking, we'd like to stay. But when you look at it pragmatically, how are you going to stay in charge of Manchester United when every bit of money you bring in will mean less dividends, more debt, and that money will have to be spent on the club? And you're still going to get a shitload of trouble from the fans. So I think the sale is the most logical thing. Do you think United are going to win the league, says Mohammed? No, I don't. And I don't really spend much time thinking about we're going to win the league until I think we've got a chance of winning the league. The thing is, Arsenal and Man City are basically in a two-way, and they're locked in on it, and it looks like they're going to win a lot of games. We can't close a gap, no matter how many games we win, if the gap stays the same. So we've got to go to Anfield and win on Sunday, and then we just got to keep winning. You know, I think the league, and also there's a lot of games in hand accumulating at the moment. We've got to play in the cup now against Fulham. That's another league game that gets rearranged. We've already got Brentford, and we've got two now, Brentford and Brighton. So I think the league for me is still about points tally, top four. Let's see how many points we can get, and then we can build on it next season. Mark, would you consider getting someone like Ben Jacobs to come on the show to give us some entitled insight into the process? Not really, Sir Marcus. I don't really need massive insight into it. I speak to a lot of people and pretty much know what's going on anyway. And we had Fabrizio on Monday. I mean, if I knew of somebody that was going to give us absolute inside information, then I would do it. But the reality is, you're dealing with the sale of one of the biggest sports sports clubs in the world, and there are NDAs and non-disclosure documents, and people are speculating a lot. There's a little bit of information out there, but there's a lot of speculation, and ultimately you can figure it out for yourself. The bottom line is, at the moment, the only thing that United fans want to know is, are the Glazers going to sell and who they're going to sell to? I think ultimately they are going to sell, because I think it's complete and utter financial idiocy for the Glazers to stay. It would be stubbornness over financial acumen, and I think they have to sell. Lee says, are there any companies associated with United, sponsors, etc., the Glazers currently have influence over and would after a deal? I don't know what that means, Lee. I think, look, I want to move on because there's a lot of football stuff to talk about, but it's really simple. People want to buy Man United. Man United's up for sale. People are not going to buy Man United and allow the Glazers to stay. Basically, Qatar want to own Man United. They don't want to own Man United with the Glazers. And if the Glazers don't cut a deal, they'll walk. That's basically the case with... I presume it's the case with Sir Jim as well. I'd be very surprised if it's not. So you've got people who want to buy Man United and they want the Glazers out, and they don't want the Glazers to stay. Mikael Roach, welcome to the Members Club. How many times do you unjoin and join the Members Club, mate? I think you always seem to be joining. Either that or there's 10 of you. Anyway... the other thing people are scared about is whether the Glazers are going to sell the club or whether they're going to stay at the club. And logically, how do they stay at the football club? They haven't got a lot to sell, otherwise they'll lose their majority stake. What that stake is worth isn't going to be anywhere near as much as what the club is worth to sale. And if they do stay, they still have debt repayments. They still have a fan base that doesn't like them. And any money that is invested will need to be paid back with interest. And also that money that gets invested will have to be invested into the team and the stadium, which is something the Glazers don't really like. They'll invest in transfers by using United's revenue, but they don't like borrowing money that is theirs. Ultimately, let's break it down in the simplest sense, right? Because you'll get rival fans who do not know what they're on about, and they'll say, you talk about United not spending money, but you've spent $1 billion in the last 10 years. Every penny of that is ours. It's United revenue. Pogba, Anthony, any other transfer, it's United revenue. That is ticket sales, sponsorships, TV deals. That money is United money. If the Glazers sell part of their football club and raise $2 billion, and that $2 billion gets spent on a new Old Trafford, that's Glazer money, because they will be selling a percentage of a club they own, making $1 billion or two, and having to spend $1 billion or two on Man United. Tell me one time the Glazers have done that. When have they ever spent their money? They don't do that. And that's really important, because transfers, it's revenue from Man United. It's our money. Yes, it's their money because they own the club, but it's not their personal money. If they sell part of the club for investment, that investment will have to go towards building Old Trafford again. That will be directly Glazer money. There is no revenue they can build the stadium with. Our profit level is about 100 to 200 million pounds a year. They can't do it off that. They need investment. And people will say, wow, they'll just use the revenue and take a big loan out. But it's not their money. It's somebody else's money who's buying a stake in the club to allow them to stay. I just don't see the Glazers doing this, because ultimately they'd be using money that's their money, which they've never done. Some United fans need to stop talking about title races because Arsenal just seem unstoppable. Talk about anyone else catching them. Even City can't catch them, says Nathan. Well, look, on the league title, Arsenal have still got to go to Anfield as of we. They've got to go to the Etihad. They've got to go to St James's Park. They've got to go to West Ham. They've got Brighton and Chelsea at home. There's still a possibility that Arsenal could, drop another 15 points. I mean, they might not, but I wouldn't say the title race is over, but all United can do is keep winning. Tank, welcome to the Members Club. Mark, big up United stand. Much love from Kenya. Love the show, says Rodney. And after Partey's performance, I think he's on par with Casemiro now, says Zane. Okay. The 30% they already sold wasn't reinvested back in the club, so can't see them changing a habit of a lifetime, says Glenny Boy. No, I think ultimately they're going to sell. Because they're in a terrible position. They never wanted to sell. The reason they're having to sell is because the club doesn't make them enough money anymore. So, look, we'll see what happens, but I think it's positive news. I think it's new news, and I think it's sensible news about where we're at with this. And actually, the bottom line is, I think Qatar have sent a warning to the Glazers. The Glazers, it's almost over the last week and a half, the Glazers have got the power. I don't think they have. I really do not think the Glazers are in power here. I mean, they own the football club, but I don't think they've got the power. They're desperate to get money in. And if you're trying to buy United at the moment, there is a bit of hardball to play. You've got to be careful because someone might put a higher bid than you in. But there is definitely... Mike Mikhail says he has issues with YouTube. Hope you're doing well, mate. There is I do think there is some hardball to be played here because the Glazer situation isn't that strong, really. Jakob says they'll bid the highest anyway. Meteorol, thank you very much for your super chat. And we need this owners out or we'll go backwards, says Josh. Look, bringing it back to the football, and I think that's a good update, by the way. Bringing it back to the football, we need the stadium sorted, we need the infrastructure sorted, and we need this manager to get backed. Because I think last night against West Ham, it was another fantastic night for Manchester United fans. But I sort of agree with what Roy Keane said about West Ham. I don't know. I love Roy Keane, but I just... When he was losing it about West Ham and then he said, and other teams are coming here and doing this the same, it's embarrassing. I did think, he's not Italian, don't worry. I think that there was almost a bit of a frustration in Roy's voice. I almost felt like it was almost like he was frustrated that West Ham hadn't beat us. And I do wonder, deep down, with some of these pundits and journalists, if deep down, because they didn't champion Ten Hag at the start, do they actually want him to just drop off a little bit? I don't know. I might be completely missing the room there. And I do love Roy Keane as a he's one of my favourite players. And even as a pundit, when I don't agree with him, I still like listening to him. But he was right. He was right. West Ham had an opportunity to beat us last night, and they didn't. They just fell apart. And teams are doing that more and more at Old Trafford. And this is brilliant for us because I sensed it with 10 minutes to go. You just sensed there was going to be that chance that we would take. And we ended up winning 3-1, not 2-1. But look, we look at that team last night and we can argue about different types of players. But it was hard work because until you bring Casemiro and Martinez and Rashford on, we're never going to win that game. And Garnacho was the match winner and Fred made a difference and other players played reasonably well. But We've got to invest in that squad. You've got to invest in that manager because if we want to try and do this again next year, and I'm talking try and win the league and the Champions League, that's still a lot of games. We'll never have a season like this again, but it's still a lot of games, and we need more quality bringing into that team. Joshua says, do you want Tony, Kane or Osimhen or someone else? Well, I don't think Ivan Toney's realistic when he's probably going to get a big ban, so I'd remove him from any list at the moment. And also, United won't go anywhere near Ivan Toney. They just won't do it. The gambling charges, all the other issues they've had recently, I just think United will swerve anything like that. I think it was the reason we swerved Bissouma in the summer as well. I just think United, after some of the problems they've had, I don't think they want to go anywhere near that type of a deal at the moment. So I don't think Tony will happen. I think Harry Kane will logically happen. I think that's an interesting one, but... yeah, I mean, I'd love Osimhen, but it might be quite difficult. Mark, can you please look at my chat from the start of the video? So Stevie B, not at the moment, mate. And Rice and Kane are Bellingham buzzing for the Dublin show, says Patrick. Thank you very much. You know what? I was going to say that, actually. I think with Casemiro, we showed that there's a player there that we went and spent a lot of money on, but even at 60 million for a 30-year-old. And at the time, I did say, what are we doing? I thought it was desperation. I really thought it was it wasn't. Well, look, Casemiro. Look, I don't. It's like people trying to rewrite history in the present. There's an account out there, and I'm not here to get them victimised or anything like that. So I'm not going to name the name. But they're what would be described as a super red. That they're probably they just think that they're the bee's knees. They think they're the voice of Manchester United fans. The super fan, whatever you want to call them. And they're forever clipping up what I said about Rashford, selling Rashford at the end of last season, which I still stand by at that point. The funny thing is, and I can't be asked to do the tweet because I know everybody was doing it, but there's a tweet from last April where they're calling the players cowards, a disgrace, and kick them all out the club. And yet here they are saying that about me now, about what I said about Rashford. I'm like, you're just bloody hypocrites. Absolute hypocrites. You're so bitter and jealous that you try and take other people down, but you did worse. But my point is that I stand by it. Casemiro was a pure desperation signing. And I'm not deleting the tweet. It was a desperation signing. We just tried to buy Rabiot before Casemiro. We'd spent all summer trying to find De Jong before Casemiro. But I think there's a lesson to be learnt there. Avinash, welcome to the Members Club. Casemiro at £60 million in the last 2 weeks of the transfer window was desperation. But it was actually the most amazing signing we've probably made post Sir Alex. I think it's arguably our best signing we've ever made in the last 10 years. And arguably, you could say, well, Martinez has been pretty good, but Martinez cost us 47 million quid. Casemiro cost us 60. I think Casemiro is the best signing we've done in 10 years. I think there's a lesson to be learnt there. Sometimes you shouldn't be paying £60 million for a 30-year-old midfielder, by the way. You shouldn't be doing that. It is a lot of money, but he's completely been worth it. Maybe we're a bit lucky, but what a signing. There's a lesson there. I'm going to say this now. I don't know whether it's possible, but I would be absolutely all over Frankie de Jong this summer. I've been thinking about it for a week, and I was so impressed with him at Old Trafford. And I know he's a good player, but this is a player that Ten Hag desperately wants as well. If I was the CEO or the director of football, and I've seen what Eric Ten Hag has done with Rashford and Bruno and Casemiro and Varane and Dalot and Shaw and Martinez and all these players, if I can see what he's doing there with those players, then 100% I'm going to see what is happening with, Frankie de Jong is the player that he desperately wants, and therefore I would be all over that, absolutely all over it. I would spend the money to get him, because I think what Casemiro has shown is if it's the right player, there's no such thing as overpaying. And look, I think the treatment of Antony's been a disgrace. I really, really do. But if you get the right player, no one ever talks about fees. Imagine Casemiro had come in and it was a retirement gig, and people would have been going, look at United, 60 million quid, absolute joke. They've been absolutely ripped off there. People would be having a laugh, wouldn't they? But I think break the bank for Frankie de Jong is my opinion. And then people will be saying you're wrong, do it for Bellingham. But the fact that Ten Hag's desperate for him as well, you can see how he'd fit into that team. I think if we had Frankie de Jong and Casemiro in that midfield, God help the rest of the league. I can see Eric loved Sir Alex, but was a bit irritated that interviewers were still lingering on the dinner. He just said no time for that now, says Glenny Boy. Well, they've been going on about it for a long time. Mikael Roach has just gifted a membership. We're 2 points worse off than Liverpool in relation to first after 24 games last season. A team being touted as the best ever with a World Cup mid-season, says Sam. That's an interesting stat. Kieran says, I've just joined the chat. Definitely be a good move to push for de Jong. If Ten Hag sees so much potential for him, he really could act so much depth. I think the thing about de Jong for me is, Kieran, really good player. I thought he played really well against us last week. But also, Ten Hag has an obsession with him, doesn't he? Hold on a minute. Something's getting right on my nerves. It's just some knobhead cutting the grass. I'm not. Stop cutting your fucking grass! I'm doing a live show, you bloody idiot. He's got one of them super powered. They're just wealthy across the road. They've got a bloody. It's you know these people who pay for people to come and cut their grass. Snobs. Yeah. I mean, I don't get that. It's not even a big garden, and they're not old. People who get people to come and cut their grass, and then people who the people fair play. Everyone's got to make a living, but the people who come and cut their grass, they haven't got a fly mow. They'll always have some industrial thing that makes a bloody noise like that. It's finished now already. You can't even hear it anymore. That's how small the grass is. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. Cut your own bloody grass. He's an accountant anyway, sat on his arse all day, earning bloody 6-figure fees. Does nothing at the weekend. See him walking off to the tennis club. Get out and cut your grass, you twat. With all the centre midfield names being mentioned for the summer, am I losing my mind thinking McAllister is perfect, says Charlie. There's people out there. There's people out there. I want Ferguson from Brighton, though, as I said last night. George says, Mark, I think Ten Hag is the buy of the year. Where would we be without him, says George. He's just fantastic, mate. But look, that's another reason why I would go, as I say, if you tuned in a little bit late, Casemiro was a desperation signing by Manchester United, and it was probably it was an expensive deal, 60 million for a 30-year-old. He's actually turned out being a bargain, an absolute bargain. I'm sort of like saying, look, if Ten Hag is desperate for Frankie de Jong, and we can do a deal, bloody do the deal. Even if it's 80 million, just do it. The price tag doesn't matter if the player does what Casemiro's done. And I think we've, after 10 years of absolute torture on some shite signings where we spend stupid money on players that just aren't good enough, I want to see us do another Casemiro this summer. Not because it's big money, but spend the money to get the player. And Frankie de Jong is clearly Ten Hag's obsession. He sees that player and wants him. And we need a midfielder. And I'm looking at Casemiro, who's definitely going to be at the top of the... I mean, Casemiro's not going to drop off for 2 or 3 years. I think Casemiro's here for 3 years at that level. I don't see him dropping off. I just don't see him dropping off. The way he plays the game, I don't think losing a yard of pace, even if he did, will massively impact his game. If you put Frankie de Jong next to him, fuck, bloody hell. Mark, what time shall I come to cut your grass, says Robert McCormack. Robert, don't tell everyone that. Mark, you're a legend of barefoot kick-ups. If you know, you know. Someone is using Manscaped machine near you and reminding you to use it on your nose, says Amit. Thank you very much, Amit. Yep. Silvio, thanks. Welcome to Members Club. SD says, no doubt De Jong is a good player, but he doesn't want to play for Man United. We should go for players who want to, says SD. Well, look, I mean, that's sort of irrelevant in a way. It is irrelevant in a way because it's about whether you can do the deal or not. Nobody's going to kidnap him and bring him to the club, and it might be a difficult deal to do, but I'd certainly like it. There was a question in the chat earlier about let's sign up Sabitzer and Weghorst now. Some of you might agree with that. It's a democracy. Personally, no. I shall say no, Weghorst, and no, Sabitzer. I appreciate your impact on the team, and there may well be a contract for you in the summer. But right here, right now, no, you're not having a contract. No, not yet. Not yet. There is a very clear lesson to be learnt here. And it revolves around Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole's at... I don't want to depress people in the morning, but some people might get happy with it. Ole's at the wheel. Tell me how good does it feel? You remember the song. There's a video of me outside Old Trafford dancing around with hundreds of United fans singing this song. I can't watch it anymore. I can't speak. And I can't watch that clip. We need to learn from that lesson every time. What's his name? Pratt, Rio. I don't care. Sign him up. That sort of mentality... Get it out of this football club. And I don't think Ten Hag has it. With Ollie, he did really, really well. He did really, really well for 4 months. And in March, we gave him a contract. We could have waited 2 months and decided. And if we'd waited 2 months, we would have seen him collapse and ruin top 4. It cost us 3 years. There is every chance that we can give Weghorst and Sabitzer a contract, but why consider it before May? If they like Manchester United and they enjoy being here, keep them hungry and make a decision in May. If they said to us in March, I want to know if you're going to keep me because I've got offers from bloody Turkey or Italy or whatever, I'd say off you go. If you want to be at this club, work hard till the end of May and we'll make a decision. And if you play well, we'll look after you. That's the simple answer. We're Manchester United under Ten Hag now. We finally look like we have got control. We've got a situation where people want to play for us and want to play for our manager. We don't need to be doing desperate deals. And look, I think there's a chance that Weghorst might get to stay. I think there's a chance that Sabitzer might get to stay. But it's way too early to make that decision. Umzil says, what if we get 89, 90 points and don't win the Prem? I don't think the Premier League will be won with 89 or 90 points. I really don't. And in pre-season, Iqbal also kind of played like Frankie, still big gap, but that glimpse has loved to see him get game time. Look, I like Iqbal. I like some of the young players we've got, but you've got to trust Ten Hag. It's not like he hasn't given young players a chance, and he's always said, I'll only play young players if I think if they're ready to play. What's Man United's points tally at the moment? 49 points and 14 games to go. I think I'm right in saying we've got 14 games to go. 49 points. 14 times 3 is 42. We can only get 91 points. That might not be enough anyway. And that would mean winning every bloody game. So, yeah, I think the most we can get is 91 points. I don't know that that's going to be enough, you know. I really don't know that that's going to be enough. Arsenal currently have got 60 points. And they've got 30 games left. Even if they lose 3, they can still get 90 points. I mean, it just shows you how difficult it would be. Arsenal lose 3 games and win the rest, they still get 90 points. We need to win every game to get 91. It's tough. It's tough. We need Arsenal and Man City to lose a few games to have any chance. But you know what? In relation to the league, I'm not massively bothered about that. The FA Cup last night when we were losing to West Ham, I was gutted. I was really, really, really gutted. I was like, I don't want to fucking lose this game. I don't want Man City just having a freebie to the FA Cup. I want it to be in our hands, and I was so happy that we won. The Garnacho goal was fantastic. But the league, I don't feel like the league is it's not in our hands, and I feel like we're not really in the league race. We're sort of on the edge, waiting, and that's fine. Let's keep winning games. But if I'm honest, if we win the league this year, I think it would be a little bit like Leicester. I think it would be a bit of a smash and grab. I'll definitely grab it, but I don't feel like the league. I don't think we're ready to win the league yet. It doesn't mean we can't, but I don't feel like we're ready. I mean, I look at if we won the league with some of the weaknesses we've got in our squad, Ten Hag deserves 2 statues. I just do not think we're ready to win the league yet. You can do it. I've seen Leicester do it, but I don't think we're ready to win the league yet. And I think part of winning the league is solving some of the problems we've got in the team. SK says, I get the vibe Roy actually likes Ten Hag. I think Roy's own way tried to say West Ham never took their chances and pumping United up in his own way, says SK. Good to hear. And Timothy, welcome to the Members Club. I'll tell you one thing I did think that was interesting about last night. I want to read some of Ten Hag's quotes, but I don't know. I just was thinking about it last night. I mean, look, you know my stance on this. I think even Ten Hag got another question about Maguire last night. I don't even dislike Harry Maguire. I dislike the media obsession with Harry Maguire. I mean, for me, I don't think there's a massive amount of difference between Harry Maguire and Michael Keane at Everton, and he doesn't even start for Everton. I think Tomori's way more talented, and he's English, but he plays in Italy, so no one gives a shit. The obsession with Harry Maguire is boring, because I don't actually think he's particularly good. I think he's okay. I think he's a decent centre-back. But the media treat him like he's Sergio Ramos. He's just not that. If he was Sergio Ramos and he wasn't playing for United, I get it. But the media attention is like we've got one of the world's best centre-backs, and he's not. He's just decent. And they constantly go on about him. The bottom line with Maguire is he cost us a goal last night. He thought Bruno was going to make the tackle and he didn't close him down. And if he steps forward 1 metre, that doesn't go in. So I'm sorry. He gets booked because he's slow. He's trying to play like Varane or Martinez, and he just can't do it. It's not what he is. He doesn't suit the way we play. Simple as that. But that debate will rage and rage because the media just cannot shut up about it. But I think, as has happened many times over the years, we tend to have the conversations on here that other people don't really have because they're just so locked on bias and, PR, I don't know. I saw Lindelof get subbed off yesterday. There was no petulance at all, but you could see he was not happy that he was being subbed off because why would you be happy? And I'm not saying Lindelof played well yesterday. I thought he was, was average. But when I look at this season, and Ikshan says the problem is that our B team is not good enough, and we saw that against West Ham, and that's what we need to invest in the summer. You're right, Ikshan. But when I look at Lindelof this season, I think he's had a better season than Maguire. I actually think Lindelof and Martinez had a few games together where they played really well. Most times Maguire's played, we've been poor. We've still won games like last night, but we've not looked solid. And if I'm Victor Lindelof, people keep talking about whether Maguire's going to go or not. I don't necessarily think he is going to go. Because I'm pretty sure there's a big chance that Lindelof will knock on Ten Hag's door in the summer and go, I like being here. I think you're a fantastic coach, but you can't give me first team football, can you? And Eric will go, I really like you, Victor. You're a model professional. You've done a good job for me. And, I would like you to stay, but I also appreciate that you want to go and play first team football, so I'm not going to stand in your way. And I think there'll be a queue of clubs willing to give us 20, 25 million for Lindelof across Europe. And I think we'll just do that deal. Now, if we do that deal, are we going to let Maguire go as well? So I would just plant that seed. I think Lindelof has had a better season than Maguire. And I don't think Lindelof is going to put up with another year being fourth choice centre-back. So I think Lindelof might go. And in which case, I think Maguire might stay. Because I don't know if someone's going to pay Maguire 200 grand a week. So all these people getting excited that Maguire's going to go, I think he might still be here next season. I really do. Because I think Lindelof look, if I was a manager of Everton or Atletico Madrid or Marseille or Lazio or whatever, and I had a choice between Maguire and Lindelof's on half the money, I'm going for Lindelof every time. I like Lindelof. I think Lindelof will go. And you know what? It's a shame he hasn't got an English passport because actually I think it'd do us a lot of good if he did, because I think people would be championing him and mentioning him. I think it's a disgrace that Lindelof doesn't get any mention in the press at all. It's always Maguire. And the bottom line is, it just shows the knowledge of the modern journalist, because Lindelof, I think, has formed, I think our three best centre-back partnerships, here's one for you. Our three best centre-back partnerships this season, fact, Varane and Martinez, Varane and Shaw, number 2, Martinez and Lindelof, 3. That's our best 3 centre-back partnerships this season. So, look, Lindelof's not in the top 2, all right, but I think him and Martinez are our 3rd best centre-back partnership. No mention of that. Never gets mentioned. Eric, why are you not picking Lindelof? I don't think I've heard anybody say it. It's just bias and it's nonsense. And it's the same bias and nonsense that's going in on Anthony as well. I think if Maguire would give up the armband, a lot of the focus would be taken off him, says Ike. No, I don't think it would. I don't. I think there's an English obsession there. His PR is probably locked in with quite a lot of journalists and outlets, and it's just in their interest to keep talking about him all the time. But I find it really boring. I'd find it really boring if they spoke about Lindelof as well. I don't really see what the point in talking about a reserve centre-back is when we've got 2 of the best centre-backs in Europe at the moment. There's nowhere to go with that conversation, to be honest. But it's just one to keep in your mind. Why would Victor Lindelof hang about where he's underappreciated and not really getting the game time? And I think Ten Hag likes Lindelof, but it's almost like, Lindelof shouldn't have been took off last night. Unless he had an injury, he shouldn't have been took off. What did I want to talk about as well? Mark, we should do something with Kim Min-jae and Lindelof in the summer, says Mikael Roach. What, take them on holiday? Go on tour? I'm only joking. Yeah, Lazio might do a deal. Is Eric Ten Hag disagreeing or subbing Lindelof being weak, says Robert McCormack. No, I don't know, Robert. I mean, look, I'm a massive fan of Ten Hag, Robert, as you know, and I he's got so much money in the bank at the moment that he can do what he bloody well likes. I think you can disagree with some things that he does, but the respect and trust is there in the fan base. I would have took Maguire off last night and put Lindelof with Martinez. Maybe there was a bit of an injury, maybe there wasn't. But you know, the McTominay substitution at half-time was inspired. So I don't think there's favouritism there. I think it's you know, maybe I don't know. Maybe he thinks Maguire's the better centre back. Maybe it's because he's the captain. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't make a massive amount of difference, does it? He has picked Lindelof and Martinez in the past and benched Maguire. But it doesn't really matter. It will only matter if we pick up an injury to Varane, which I just want to say as well. I think Varane's consistency in this United side this season, injury-wise, has been as fantastic as it has been remarkable when you think about it. Anyway, we've got some quotes from Ten Hag that came in. Let's just go through some of these after the game. We like Old Trafford. Old Trafford is a fortress. Old Trafford is our home. Old Trafford is a good fight. On Garnacho, it's a skill so specific. There are not so many players in the world football who can take players on or are capable of doing it. They just go play, outplay and out-dribble them. And that skill he has. But he has more skills than only that. For example, finishing. And look, I think it's very, very clear. I mean, look, we need to sort of move on from it. But you saw it on social media a few weeks ago. Garnacho was getting absolute pelters, and I don't understand it. From our own fans, I'll never understand that. But he's a very special player, and it's very, very clear that Erik Ten Hag, you know, believes in him. And I'll repeat what he said a few times. Ten Hag is not about handing out starts or 20 minutes to young players because they're young. He plays you if he thinks you're good enough. Pellistri is a player we'd like to see get more game time. Ten Hag clearly doesn't feel he deserves it. Same with Elanga, same with Mainu, same with Iqbal. We see them on the bench, but we don't see them on the pitch. But we see Garnacho on the pitch all the time, and that just shows you that at this moment in time, Ten Hag is setting a very high bar, and I'm here for it because there is opportunities if you're a young player, but it's very clever from Ten Hag because it's like, look, I'll put you on the bench, but I won't put you on the pitch because I think there's better players than you on the bench that are more experienced that I want to use. But you can go up a level. Garnacho is 18. He's on the pitch ahead of senior players because I think he's good enough. Not because he's young, because he's good enough. And that's the bar. And I know it frustrates some people because people want to see Iqbal playing, they want to see Mainu playing, they want to see Pellistri playing. Some people want to see Elanga playing. And I get that. But you've got to respect what Ten Hag's doing. It's not that he doesn't want to play youth, like Mourinho probably doesn't want to play youth. But he does want to play youth, but he wants to play the best. Because what he will know is that, you know, the odds of a player from Manchester United's youth team becoming a first team regular is probably less than 10% when you do the maths. It's probably way less than that. But we think it's higher because we're all about the youth. But, you know, if you're a young player in the United under-23s or whatever at the moment, you've probably got less than a 5% chance of becoming a first team player for Man United. And all Ten Hag is doing is he's evidencing that by saying, look, I'm not going to just play you because you're a young player. The chances of you being good enough to play for Man United are pretty small. So if I'm going to play you, I've got to believe you're going to do that. And with Garnacho, we've definitely got a player who can do that. When you have an away game, you have to deal with it, and we should do. But of course, we are happy to play at Old Trafford. Ten Hag. He did say something about Casemiro and Rashford. He says, I plan to bring them on anyway to keep them on the pace. The players love that. You can rest them for 45 minutes, but they did need a few minutes for Sunday anyway. And I did see Weghorst. I think he was one of the best players on the pitch. That was from Ten Hag as well. Fred says that Garnacho is going to be one of the best players in the world. The squad feel around Manchester United at the moment is fantastic, as we know. Bloody hell. That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Sorry, I can't tell you that. I was just looking at how much a bottle of Prime was going for. 12 quid. I've not actually tried it yet, you know. I see all these bloody influencers getting sent it, and I suppose I could get hold of some, but I'll tell you what, it's amazing. Arsenal could be 14 points ahead by the time we play Liverpool, says Michael. Well, as I say, when it comes to the league, I'm pretty relaxed. I'm pretty relaxed about it. Let's just see what happens. At the end of the day, I'm sure you lot feel the same way as me. When we won that trophy on Sunday, it becomes a bit like a drug, in the sense that you want that to happen again. I want it to happen next season. I want it to keep happening again and again and again and again. And the reality is, you look at that FA Cup draw. Never disrespect Fulham or Brighton. That's a bad idea. But it looks like it's us or City to win that tournament. So that's there to be won. You look at the Europa League, and actually, I do question. Well, I think it's us or Arsenal on paper, and I do question just how much interest Arsenal can take in that, because the Europa League could mess their title hopes up if they're not careful. Thursday, Sunday is not easy. So, look, we've got a great chance of winning. Oh, not a great chance. We've got a good chance of winning another trophy or two, and I think that needs to be the focus this season. And then, look, what will happen with the league? We'll have to wait and see. We will win the league. We overcame Newcastle, says Umzi. Okay, not really any logic to that, but let's pretend there is. Is the Glazers taking everyone for fools? Glazers out, sell up now. No, you need to watch the start of the video, David. I think we've sort of clarified what's happening there. Off topic, Mark, but the media act like Maguire's game's great, but when Varane was on the bench on massive wages, nobody gave a shit. I agree with you, Mad Bro. I really do. It's a massive issue in this country, and it's been a massive issue in this country for a long time. We're meant to live in a world of equality and diversity and fairness, and look, there's far bigger issues than this, but I think many people do live in that world. It's called a world without borders. It's a world without, that's exactly what it is. I'm English, right? I lived 3.5 years in Ireland in the early noughties, and I loved it. And there was occasion where you had to be a bit careful, because obviously, historically and presently, there is still, a lot of things, a lot of sensitivities around Ireland, England. But I lived there for 3.5 years, and it was fantastic. It's the best place I've ever lived, and I loved it. And I was made to feel welcome, and it was absolutely fantastic. My point is that I don't relate or understand, and also I live in a city, and I worked in a job where diversity and fairness and equality, whilst it's not always there, is far more than it was when I was growing up in the late 80s, and my kids grow up in that world as well. And I frown and despair at bias and injustice, and pull the ladder up, Jack, and help the rest and leave everyone else. I don't like bias. I don't like it at all. I find it really unpalatable, and it massively exists in the world of football in this country. And people will say, "Wow, it's not that deep. It just happens," but it does. It does happen. And you're right. Varane's one of the world's best centre-backs. He started the season on the bench. No one ever said a word. Constantly going on about Maguire. Lindelof's had a better season. No mention of him. Sancho, 18 months into his United career, not going particularly well, being supported, looked after quite rightly. Anthony, been here 5 minutes, does a spin. Oh, look at the showboating bag of shit. That's basically what they're saying. It's like, and I'm like, tell me why that's happening. And it's because of their passport. Well, hold on a minute. How is that still going on? This is the Premier League. It's not the England training camp. It's the Premier League, and the Premier League's been like this for years. We shouldn't be focused on a passport in the Premier League. Manchester United's greatest players weren't English, and yet we're still obsessed with English. And I'm English. I want England to do well, but when Man United are playing, I don't give a shit about their passport, to be honest with you. I don't take any great pride in us having an English back four over Malacia, Martinez, Varane and Dalot. I want the best team to play for Man United, and that back four, obviously Luke Shaw would play over Malacia, but there are still people out there that just champ. We saw it with Henderson and De Gea. We saw it there as well. It's just very unpalatable. And people will say, oh, you're making a big deal out of it. But it does frustrate me because I just think it's completely odd. We don't need all that. Goldbridge Bugbear. Would you prefer Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Dalot to start at Anfield? I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka will start at. But it's a good battle going on there, and I'm a big fan of Dalot. Ian Warren, welcome to the Members Club. Mark, whenever Maguire makes a mistake, he always says to interview, it was our mistake. He never says it was my mistake, says MUHD. I'm reading Ten Hag's comments about Maguire on the United Stand Twitter. Sounds like he's having to put a lot of time and coaching into improve him, says Glenny Boy. I like Maguire. I don't dislike him. I think he's a relatively decent centre back at a certain club in a certain system. But it amazes me that these journalists cannot read the game. He doesn't suit this level of football in this style of football, and it's a big weakness when he plays. We want to play a high line with two centre backs that defend on their own and send their full backs forward. When you play Maguire, you can't play a high line and send your full backs forward because you get exploited. So it completely changes the way we play the game. It's as simple as that. But every week we're talking about it, and actually we haven't spoken about it for weeks, have we? I just want to get back to Varane and Martinez, and he can sit on the bench. Simple as that. But there's more positive things to talk about. But I think he might end up staying because I think Lindelof, who's the better centre back, will go, I want to go and play first team football, and you can't knock him for that. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. We will be back at 2 o'clock. I'm caught between two minds here. Either it'll be a topical show, or I might actually just do the Liverpool preview a little bit early because I'm really sort of excited about this game against Liverpool at the weekend. They've won last night. They're back in the top four race, but they need to beat us. We need to beat them. I think it's going to be the most interesting Liverpool-Man United game for quite a while, and I'm here for it. So I am on Twitch at 3 o'clock, Rahul, but we'll be live United Stand at 2 o'clock. Speak to you all in a bit. Have a great day, and speak to you in a bit. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. That was it.